What did you say, Father?
Yeah, we'll get started. Let's do a short prayer here, and we'll get started. Do a little catechism here. Okay, we can say a prayer. Good. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
Saint Vincent de Paul,
Pray for us.
Saint Jude,
Pray for us.
Lady Victory,
Pray for
Lady
us.
Sorrows,
Pray for
Lady
us.
of Christians, Lady Ignatius.
Pray for us.
So I want to do here just kind of an abbreviated version of our little 4 marks analysis, because there are 4 signs of the church's presence. 4 signs of Christ's presence. 1, Holy Catholic Apostolic. So wherever God is, there has to be one, because there's only one God. Wherever God is, there's going to be holiness, because God, holy means set apart for God, but things for himself. Wherever God is, there's going to be Catholic, which means universal. That God is whatever God is going to spread to every part of our life. And wherever God is going to be apostolic. And apostolic means it's going to spread from our little Catholic kingdom to the outside world, and also it's going to be connected to God in power and authority. So the apostolic has 2 sides. One side by which I'm connected to God right now, and the other side by which I go out and bring God to the whole world. So we'll do an abbreviated version of this 1 Holy Catholic Apostolic in consideration of the 4 marks, kind of applying to our situation with Fraternity of St. Peter, the Society of St. Pius X mainstream, and our present situation maintaining the Society of St. Pius X. So wherever the Catholic Church is, there has to be 1 Holy Catholic Apostolic. These are 4 signs, 4 minimum signs of God's presence. If God's there, you're going to have these 4 minimum signs. And the first one is unity. And there are 4 unities. Faith. 1 faith. 1 sacrifice. 1 set of sacraments. United under 1 head. Because remember, the church is alive, and these faith, sacraments, and sacraments must be united under 1 head. So first of all, first unity is unity of faith. And remember, they're kind of built on top of each other. First of all, the faith. That what do we believe as Catholics today? Well, the same thing that Catholics believed 100 years ago, the same thing they believed 1,000 years ago, the same thing they believed 2,000 years ago. And this faith has a sacrifice of the Mass at the center of that faith. There's going to be a sacrifice by which we worship God, and the essential sacrifice can be the same now as what it was before. The sacrifice of the New Testament is the unbloody sacrifice of Christ on the cross. And there are 23 rites of that sacrifice allowed in the church. I think it's 23 or it's 24. 23 or 24 rites of the church. The Novus Ordo is not one of them. But the Latin Tridentine Mass, the Ukrainian, and the Maronite, and the various rites. So there's the Melkites, etc. So there are many rites in the church, but they have the same exact sacrifice. And in the sacraments, the means of salvation. So we believe in the faith. One's worship that unites us in communion with one another. We're united in a community and sacrifice of worshiping God. And then the sacraments are the means of salvation, the 7 sacraments. And all these 3 things must be connected, united under 1 head, who is the Pope. So, and then that oneness must be holy. The oneness has power. So the oneness is going to create holiness, which means set apart for God. That's all holy means, set apart for God. So if you have the faith as sacrifice sacraments, what should happen over time is you're going to be set apart for God. You're going to find God entering into your life. Holiness is going to happen. And then the Catholicity and the set apart for God, you're going to have holy persons, holy places, holy things, and holy times. Persons can be priest, places, church, things, chalice, time, holy days. So there's going to be, and you can even lay that out in your own house. For instance, holiness in the house. There should be a little bitty place of a chapel in your house, a little altar. And so the holiness is going to be mimicked in every part of life. There'll be a little altar in your house. There'll be the Father leading the prayers. There'll be the little statues and holy water, holy pictures in the house. And there'll be times for the evening prayers and the morning prayers. So what you're going to see is this holiness is going to be in all the parts of society. If you've got a Catholic business, you're going to find a similar thing. So you're going to be mimicking of this holiness. The essential holiness will be the holiness of the church, priest, church, chalice, and holy days, and so on. And then Catholic, it's going to spread. It's going to be universal. And then apostolic, you've got the double side of the apostolic, which means very similar to under one head, which will be connected to God and spread to the world. It's going to spread to the outside, connected to God. That's one way of saying it. Now we apply these things to our situation. When it was that wherever God is, you're going to have these things. One, Holy Catholic Apostolic. Unity is going to be built on faith. Faith is going to create this setting apart, universality, connectivity to God, to spreading to the world. And I think our main focus here is going to be the focus of some more argumentation, the apologists against the Protestants. I think G.K. Chesterton says it. And then there was a priest. I can't think of the name of the French priest. It was given to me from the 1800s. It was, I think it was that bishop. What's the bishop in near the Dominicans? Bishop of Angers.
Cardinal P?
No, back in the 1800s. Can't think of his name. Anyway, but there was a bishop there. Frappel. I think it's Bishop Frappel. If not him, someone of that time frame, the 1800s. And he says, he makes a very good point. To be a good Catholic equals to be a good person. But if you're a good Protestant, you're necessarily a bad person. And if you're a good Buddhist, you're a bad person. And if you're a good atheist, you're a bad person. Now, if you're a good person and a Protestant, that means you're a bad Protestant, but a good person. So that, because Protestantism teaches, for instance, as an example of Protestantism teaches that you should, exactly like Martin Luther said, sin boldly, believe more boldly. You should have faith but not works. So therefore, if you have works, you're not being a good Protestant. And so that, the same is true of all false religions and all false teachings, so that you can be a good person in theory and a Protestant, but you can only be a good person if you're a bad Protestant. It's only the Catholic Church that good Catholic equals good person, and bad Catholic equals bad person. Every bad person is a bad Catholic, and every good person is a good Catholic. We're going to see that about the truth of faith. Now, we'll look at our situation. Let's apply this normal catechism here, which usually takes a long time, simply to the Novus Ordo, the Fraternity of St. Peter, FSSP, Neo SSPX, and the Resistance. The problem is, now the list is you need a blackboard to go from 10 miles, because you got the fake resistance, the real resistance, the Fraternity of St. Peter, SSPX, the Sede Vacantes, of course, the Novus Ordo, the liberal Novus Ordo, the conservative Novus Ordo, and then the moderate Novus Ordo. And so you can divide in all kinds of categories. But we'll just put a few categories here. What is the Catholic faith? We're talking here amongst Catholics. The Catholic faith must be the same today, yesterday, and in saecula. So yesterday, today, and in saecula, and forever. We have, when you look at the Novus Ordo, you have a unity of faith, unity of sacrifice, sacraments in one head. Now, the unity of faith is clearly, we don't have a red here, but unity of faith in the Novus Ordo, no, doesn't exist, right? There is not a unity of faith. Because it's one of the arguments that we make against the Sede Vacantists. The Sede Vacantists claim that the Pope, the Vatican II Church, is violating infallibility. Because the Vatican II Church teaches humanism, religious liberty, and so on. Therefore, it's using infallible powers. Universally teaches humanism. Universally teaches you can be saved outside the Catholic Church. Therefore, the new church is abusing it can't be Catholic because it's using its power to say universally heresy or error. And the answer is no, that's not true. The Novus Ordo Church, the Novus Ordo Catholics, with the bishops, I've met myself over 30 bishops, and these bishops had different opinions about ecumenism. Some of the bishops I met did not believe in ecumenism. They actually did not believe ecumenism was right. Other bishops believed that it was, and there was one bishop I met who wasn't sure what ecumenism is. Because some of these bishops are really ignorant. They don't know anything. So, but the point here is, there's no universal teaching in the Novus Ordo about religious liberty or about ecumenism, about the essential teachings of our church. Some bishops believe that the Pope is the Pope. Some believe he's not. They don't believe he has the authority as Pope. Some believe he's infallible. Some people believe that he's not infallible. Some are ecumenical, and some believe other religions are that ecumenism is wrong, and the Catholic Church is the only true church. There is not a unity of faith. And then, what is the cause? Our point here, what's the cause of the disunity of faith? The cause of disunity equals Vatican II. The cause of disunity equals the new Mass and the new liturgical expression, which allows itself to have multiple interpretations. Guess what happens? We find multiple interpretations. We're not talking here about a faith in which there is one unified teaching in the Novus Ordo, and some people accept it and other people reject it. We don't find a unified teaching in the Novus Ordo that some accept and others reject. Like some Novus Ordoites really don't believe the heresies of Vatican II. Other Novus Ordoites firmly believe the heresies of Vatican II as doctrines of the Church. Other Novus Ordoites are mixed somewhere in between, and the Vatican II itself sows the confusion, and the heresies that Vatican II does teach are not taught with the authority of the Church. It doesn't say in Vatican II every Catholic must believe in religious liberty, a false doctrine of religious liberty or collegiality, etc. And so but there is lack of unity in this new faith. There are heresies, but they're not universally taught or believed. And so there's a total lack of unity within the Novus Ordo, both within the dioceses. Within each diocese, we see a lack of unity. There's no unity of faith. Unity of sacrifice, well, you do have the new Mass. But even in the new Mass, some don't even follow it. I found myself, for instance, in India, that some of the bishops, as an example, do not use the new ordination rite when they ordain priests. They invent their own rite. And they don't even follow the Novus Ordo rite, which means those priests are invalid. Those ones that they ordain that way are clearly invalid. They're not even following the Novus Ordo. So they don't have a unity of sacrifice or sacraments. They don't even believe in the unity of sacrifice and sacraments. So when we talk about the unity of the Novus Ordo Church, it's completely missing. Faith, sacrifice, sacraments under one head. Doesn't fulfill the conditions of unity. Same problem with the Fraternity of St. Peter. The lack of unity is also there. From the very beginning, when I myself have met most Fraternity of St. Peter priests, first thing I asked them, well, maybe 10 different priests over the last 25 years. Can you say that the priests of Fraternity of St. Peter have the same essential doctrine about the faith? Every one of them told me no. Every one of them. We don't have the same essential doctrines. The only source of unity you could kind of say is that we must be obedient to the Pope. But even that is fuzzy. Because one priest told me a few years ago, he gave a Fraternity of St. Peter priest, he told me about a priest in Canada. And he said that this priest in Canada was told to give Holy Communion in the hand, Toronto, wherever it was. So he was told, you must give communion in the hand at your Fraternity of St. Peter Mass. So the priest decided for the next year to give no communion to anyone at any Mass. He appealed to Rome to get permission to be able to continue to give Holy Communion only on the tongue. And until the answer came from Rome, he was going to give no communion to anyone at any Mass. Thereby, he could say, I am not disobeying the bishop because he told me to give communion in the hand, because I'm not giving communion to anyone. Is that obedience? No, it's not. That's maybe a Jewish kind of obedience. The Jews believe in that kind of obedience, but you find some kind of technical, I am not being disobedient because of some technical flaw. But it's very clear that the superior, the bishop, says, you must give Holy Communion at your Mass, and when you're giving Holy Communion, as you do at every Mass, you must give the Holy Communion on the tongue as well as in the hand, both. That's the order. But the technical language was used, you must give communion in the hand. Therefore, he responds by a technicality by saying, I am not going to give Holy Communion to anyone, period, and thereby I'm not being disobedient. Well, according to Jewish law, maybe he's not being disobedient, but according to Catholic law, he is. He is given an order, he refuses it. Now, he has two obligations as a Catholic. One is to obey the order because it's of God. The other is to disobey the order because it's not of God, and he chose the tertia pars, the third part. So even when we talk about that he's neither obeying nor disobeying, but he's, in fact, he's disobeying, but he's claiming he's not disobeying, so they don't even have a real unity on what this obedience means. The only kind of unity they have is a unity of obedience. Some of the priests of Fraternity St. Peter are firmly against modernism and Vatican II and hate the new Mass. Others have no problem with it and celebrate it. And every level in between. What's the official position of the Fraternity St. Peter? New Mass acceptable. But we'd rather say the old. So there's no unity of faith in the Fraternity St. Peter. Same thing with the modern SSPX. Now they've changed their unity of faith. Because now in the modern SSPX, unlike before, the modern SSPX says, we don't like Vatican II. But we accept 95% of the council. We accept that the new Mass is legitimately promulgated. It's in writing by Bishop Follet there as an official document of the SSPX. We accept that it's valid. We used to teach, for instance, that the new Mass may not even be valid. It's probably valid, possibly not valid. We're not even sure if it's valid, but we could accept maybe that it's valid. It's the maximum we could accept. But nonetheless, the new Mass is intrinsically evil and must be rejected by all Catholics because it's not a Catholic Mass. The Catholic Mass is the Catholic sacrament, which is the 24 approved rites of the Church, of which the new Mass is not one of them. And these 24 approved rites of the Church are all a sacrifice. They're all a sacrifice. They're all the same sacrifice of Calvary, the unbloody sacrifice. The new Mass isn't necessarily even that. So the unity of faith has gone out to the new SSPX. We also find SSPX priests. I used to be able to tell Fraternity St. Peter priests when I met them before, all SSPX priests, or the SSPX priests as a whole, have essentially the same doctrine concerning Vatican II, the new Mass, and the Church. Vatican II bad, new Mass bad, stay away from it, don't follow it, it's really bad, follow the Church. And the Latin Mass good, tradition good, and the only way of salvation for souls is to follow Catholic tradition everywhere in the world. Catholic Church, the true church, outside of which is no salvation, and everyone needs to be Catholic in order to go to heaven, and we're going to help those people who are not Catholic enter the Catholic Church, those people that are Catholic to not fall into the errors and heresies of the modern church, and preserve their faith. The unity of SSPX doctrine is gone now. The unity now exists in us and the SSPX resistance, or anybody who holds that position which is no longer being held by the mainstream of society. With regard to the holy, the set apart for God, the second characteristic. So when we say that the holiness of the church, when we say the church is holy, we don't mean that there's a whole bunch of holy people running in it. We mean that in the church there is a power to make holiness. It's like my toilet bowl cleaner that's designed for clean toilets. No, toilet bowl cleaner is designed for dirty toilets, so that when you pour the toilet bowl cleaner in, it makes it clean. When you get the Mr. Clean, it makes it clean. When you get the soap, you put it in the sink becomes clean. The soap has the power to make a sink clean. The soap has the power to make a pot clean. So when we say the church is holy, we mean that there's a power inside the church that makes clean what it contacts. There is a power in the faith, the sacrifice, the sacraments that makes the cleaning contact. We'll deal with the head afterwards. That it makes the clean. Well, is that power of the Novus Ordo? Absolutely, 100% no. There is not a power of making clean in the Novus Ordo. We have 1 billion Catholics who follow the Novus Ordo ways and the Novus Ordo sacraments, Novus Ordo teaching, and their cleanness has gone out of the church. The power of making clean, that is, giving grace, is not in the new Mass. What's the proof? The greatest apostasy in the history of the world. Come to the 30th St. Peter. We find a similar thing. Where does the goodness come from? We notice that in general, we're seeing this happen now in the Society of St. Pius X as well. We're seeing a goodness or holiness. What does it come from? We'll just write it here in the Novus Ordo section. It comes ex opere operantis. Non ex opere operato. Two kinds of grace. Ex opere operantis and ex opere operato. Ex opere operantis means on the power of the work of the one working, the person doing the work. So, whereas ex operato is the power of the thing itself. The Mass gives grace, whether the priest is holy or not. The sacraments give grace, whether the priest is good or not. Now, what we're finding with Novus Ordo, the grace isn't there. But can there be grace in a new Mass? Of course there can be grace in a new Mass. Where does the grace come from? God gives grace to everyone. The grace to leave the new Mass, for instance. The grace to realize this is straight from hell, get out of here. That's a grace. Also, if you get grace in that Mass, it's going to be the grace that comes from a holy priest or a holy lady praying behind the column. The priest simply taught the true faith. The priest said, go to confession or be anointed or something good. Well, that's going to be because of ex opere operantis, because of the good priest. And so what's interesting is I'm learning more and more about the indult priests, the fraternity of St. Peter, as the years have gone by. And the Novus Ordo priests are conservative in general. It's very noticeable in the Novus Ordo Church, fraternity of St. Peter, and now the new SSPX. Where is the goodness found? In the priest. He's a conservative priest. He is a holy priest. He is a spiritual priest. He's preaching good things. He's giving good advice. And the holiness is in the person, not in the organization. It's in the person, not in the teaching. So it's really, really important. When you go to a new Mass, it really matters whether you go to Father Skippy's Mass or Father Retro's Mass, the way that Father Takata puts it. Father Retro, he's got the Beretta, he's got the beautiful chasuble, he holds his fingers and thumb like that. He's a spiritual dude. And Father Skippy, he's not. Well, it matters whether you go to Father Skippy or Father Retro or the new Mass, because the new Mass itself is evil. And the only good you're going to get out of it is going to be because of Father Retro. He's spiritual. He's holy. That's opere operantis grace. That's grace because he's a good man. What's the big negative of this? Big negative of this is, as time progresses, because now we're 50 years after the Council, as time progresses, Catholics begin to think the Church equals a holy man. In fact, one of the ladies here is telling me that they call the priest here in St. Joan of Arc the Holy One. Have you spoken to the Holy One? They call him the Holy One. Have you spoken to the Holy One? Do you know the Holy One? Do you listen to the Holy One? Well, why do they call him the Holy One? Because what matters is Father is holy, Father is spiritual, Father is wise, Father knows. Listen to Father. And this is a big problem. Because, yes, we listen to Father, but why do we listen to Father? Because he's a representative of the Church. Because he's a representative of Christ. Not because he's personally holy. If he's personally holy, well, that can be a benefit. That certainly can be a benefit. But it's not essential. Well, we listen to Christ because... So if you've got this holy priest, the fraternity of St. Peter... So that's why now Bishop Williams, for instance, is really promoting this error when he says it depends on the priest. You've got to know your Society of St. Pius X priest. This is now entered the Society of St. Pius X. The same problem of ex operantis, of the opere operantis grace. The only grace is opere operantis, so there's no grace coming from the Mass itself, the truth itself. They're not preaching it. Where is it coming from? The person, the individual, only from the individual. You got a holy guy, you get something good. You don't have a holy guy, you don't. Now this is trickled over to the Society of St. Pius X. So it's all about the person. What does he personally believe? And this is deadly because our faith is holy whether or not the priest is holy. The Church is holy. So when the priest as a representative of God, teaches the faith, it has power as a representative of God, not because he's personally holy. And so that this is now the case of St. Pius X. Everybody's telling me now this priest is good, that priest is liberal, this priest is less liberal, whereas we never said that before. SSPX priest comes in, could be Father Cranky, it could be Father Stupid, it could be Father Smart, it could be Father Rich, could be Father Poor, could be Father Idiot, could be Father Quiet, could be Father Loud, could be Father Obnoxious. Doesn't matter. He came with the faith, and it doesn't matter what his personal qualities or lack of qualities are. He came with the faith, and he is professing that faith, and he's giving that faith, and there was a power in the society. Notice also many times, and we used to tell jokes about it, the SSPX is a special gift of making every single decision wrong and doing every single thing wrong. And then it works anyway. We used to notice that many times in the history of our society. We know how to screw up anything. We can't even do a potluck. We can't organize a picnic. We can't do anything right. Everything 100% wrong, and yet somehow it works out. Why? Because the power of the society used to be the power of the faith, not of the society. That's where the power used to be. Now, of course, it's beneficial to have good men. It's beneficial to have holy men, and we want to have that. But it's essential to have faith, a benefit to have a holy man. Essential to have faith, benefit to have a holy man. The church has had very few holy popes, very few holy bishops, very few holy priests. St. John Chrysostom says the majority of priests go to hell. That was 1,600 years ago. And he said the road to hell, majority of priests go to hell, and the road to hell is paved with the skulls of bishops. That's his positive outlook on the priesthood. That's 1,700 years ago. But the church's holiness still remains. So where does our power come from? In our work of the resistance, we're just SSPX priests maintaining the faith. So that our personal faults and our problems aren't that important. All that matters is, are we upholding the true faith, professing the true faith clearly and publicly, condemning the errors, and following the tradition of our ancestors? Bang. End of problem. That's all that matters. With regard to the Catholicity, we notice the Catholicity here, universality. Universality is going out. We're noticing, for instance, the Novus Ordo, Trinity St. Peter, and now the SSPX. When you have the Catholic faith, it's got to spread to the whole of your life. And it just somehow does. People come to the Latin Mass, Father, I need to start wearing dresses. Father, I need to start I can't practice birth control anymore. Father, I need to make changes in my life. I got to be faithful in my marriage and so on. So they learn these things by coming to the Mass. What we're discovering now is people are going to the Latin Mass and they're learning, you know what, it's okay to practice NFP. Don't worry about it. You know what, and all the things I'm dealing with now in the last 10 years especially, so many priests promoting breaking up marriages. I mean, so many priests, it's not even funny. And not just the Trinity St. Peter priests and the Novus Ordo priests. I've had multiple Trinity St. Peter priests try to break up my marriages. Novus Ordo priests, I always try to do it. Now I'm seeing SSPX priests, and of course the Sede Vicandas do it all the time. And now I'm seeing a big pattern, more and more and more, of priests breaking up marriages. This is a pattern. Instead of the gospel strengthening us, we're finding a breaking down. So that when we're only holding the minimal truths, what do we need to do to be Catholic? As long as you believe that God created the world, doesn't matter if He did it by an evolutionary process. As long as you believe the Catholic Church is the true church, doesn't matter if people are saved in other religions, just they're not normally saved in other religions. It's better for them to be in the Catholic religion. And so every single doctrine is watered down or taught, training into heresy, and we don't have to spread it to others, nor to every part of our life. So that I'm going to wear dresses and we're going to be modest and proper at church on Sunday, but after church, forget it. This is growing more and more, the problem of Catholicity. And lastly, apostolicity. The grave sin against apostolicity of Bishop Fillet and New Society is, as long as we can keep our identity, that is totally anti-apostolic. We can work with modernists as long as we don't have to do the modernist things. So if we're going to work with serial killers, we're going to work with murderers as long as I don't have to murder. If he murders, well, you know, what can I do? If he robs a bank, what can I do? As long as I don't have to murder, I don't rob a bank. So if I can be approved and get my rectory and get my food and get my sustenance, this is the example I gave in a sermon a little while ago about Onoda. Onoda, the great Japanese soldier, who in the island of Mindoro in the Philippines, he was captured in 1975. If he was captured in the year 75 or 1175, they would have killed him. But he was considered a hero in 1975. He was captured in 1975 because he was a Japanese soldier who did not know that World War II ended. It ended in 45, 55, 65, 75. He was 30 years living on the island of Mindoro as a Japanese soldier, believing the war was still going on. How did he survive that long? The way he survived, he himself describes. He says, I knew that there were no other Japanese soldiers around, so the first thing I realized is my greatest enemy was the farmer. So if I killed too many cows of one farmer, the farmer was going to kill me. And if I blew up any bridges, people were going to hunt me down and kill me. So I wanted to just wait till the Japanese army came, and my duty was to survive. So therefore, I carefully killed one cow on one farm, and then I left that farm, so they would think it was an anomaly. Then I would kill another goat on another farm. I'd steal some wheat from one farm, or some rice from one farm, steal some rice from another farm, and I made sure that I was not a disturbance amongst the people so they would not know that I was there. But I didn't surrender. I never gave up. Did he blow up a bridge? No. Did he shoot one soldier that he saw walking by? No. What is the duty of a soldier trapped behind enemy lines? Discomfort the enemy until such time as you can reunite with your soldiers. Onoda is now the ideal soldier of the resistance. He's now the ideal soldier of the modern world. As long as I can survive until the good times come back. I don't want to make waves. I don't want to cause any trouble. I want to keep my identity. I can still say Vatican II isn't very good. I can still say things aren't right anymore in the new church. But as long as I don't have to, I'm not going to condemn other people. It'll make too many waves and I'll get excommunicated. Make too many waves and I'll be thrown out of my rectory. It's the Onoda principle. And this Onoda principle is not soldiering. And the Onoda principle is not being a Catholic family. The Onoda principle is not being Catholic. It's not. It's deadly. So we can't follow that so-called, that principle of Onoda, and we're taking away the apostolicity, dead. Catholicity, dying. Holiness, dying. Oneness, dead. The days of the oneness are over in the Society of St. Pius X. We asked Father Jahir back in 2013, an 80-year-old priest down in Brazil, and he said, can we fix it? He said, no, because the society is filled with termites, white ants. When the termites have filled the wood completely, then there's no, you have to just throw it out and start anew. If you have a broken piece of wood, splice it, and you're fine. But the termites are there. The modernist thinking, the modernist ways, the modernist ideas are spread throughout the whole society. Pagliarani takes the place of Bishop Fillet. Got the same thinking. Bouchicor takes the place of Father Pfluger. He's more cruel than Father Pfluger was. Father Pfluger smashed you, but it took him a couple of days. Father Bouchicor smashed you within a couple of hours. So, so the Father Nelli was the good cop, and Father Pfluger was the bad cop. So now Father Bouchicor is the bad cop, and now Bishop de Galarreta is a good cop. You just replaced them. They're like similar to each other. And to make sure that Father Pagliarani is a good boy, you got Bishop Fillet and Father Schmidberger in the background with official titles to watch them to make sure that they go along with the new direction. And so there isn't any improvement there. And so in any case, this situation is dead and going in the wrong direction and bringing souls away from the truth. So we just have to persevere with the position of our Sisters of Faith, the position of the Society of St. Pius X, which we used to give in our catechisms during retreats. Oneness, faith, sacrifice, sacraments, under one head. Who is that one head? Go back to the one head. We haven't done with that yet because it's part of apostolicity as well. It is the Holy Father. Our Sisters of Faith said it quite well in the 74 Declaration. The only way to be faithful to Paul VI, the true Holy Father, is to be a faithful Catholic. That's how we're faithful to him. We are truly faithful to him because he's the head of the church whenever we act as good Catholics in union with the Pope. Whenever you act as a bad Catholic, you're not being faithful to him. When you act as a good Catholic, you are being faithful to him. The only way to be faithful to Pope Francis is to be a good Catholic. The only way to be faithful to Pope Francis is to teach the Catholic faith and to spread that faith. And if Pope Francis chooses to go against his own trust, he'll be judged by God. But he is the head of the Holy Church, and as the head of the Holy Church, he represents the holiness of the Church and the faith of the Church and the simplicity and practice of the Church. That's what he represents. So we have to therefore stand for the same, and then we're being faithful to him, a faithful subject to the King. Remember the martyrs. The Blessed Martha Clitheroe, I am a true faithful servant of the King. St. Thomas More, I'm a faithful servant of the King. But God's first. We're faithful servants of the King. We are faithful servants of the President. We're faithful Americans. We're faithful in every country that we happen to be in. We love the country we're in. We accept that the leadership has received this power from God. We work in accordance with the laws as much as we can, but we follow God's law first. And all the modern laws in relationship to God's laws, and we obey God rather than men. And the same is true of a man in the church, a bishop or a priest or a pope that tells us to go against God. We have to say no to him. But when we do that, we're being faithful to the head. When we don't do that, we're being unfaithful to the head. And God has promised there will always be faithful Catholics until the end of the world. We are amongst those faithful Catholics that are being faithful to the living head of the church. We are connected to the Rock of Peter right now. And we don't violate the connection to the Rock of Peter. So the one faith, one sacrament under the one head that is still setting apart things for holiness, spreading to all parts of our lives and all parts of the world, and being spread to others, and that God blesses us with conversions and souls coming to God. The grace of God will bring souls. We just have to persevere in the true faith without any playing games or compromising there. And I'll close with that. That'll be sufficient there. Anybody, any questions, whatever, that we can please go ahead and say a prayer there. Father, Holy Ghost, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost. Saint Vincent Ferrer, Saint Jude, Lady Victory, Lady Sorrows, Lady Alpha Christians, Saint Ignatius, Saint Thomas. But I think the biggest notice by all, for this reason the Society continues to work for the triumph of the Christ the King and invites all souls of goodwill to join in this stirring supernatural endeavor. Sorrow for my heart of Mary, pray for us who have recourse to the Icon, July 21st, 2018. This is called the final address. One note concerning this final address is, what does it mean, final address? Is it a declaration of what we believe? Is it a statement of what we stand for? Does it say anything of what we mean, what we're trying to go after? No, it doesn't. It's just a final address. The address evokes emotions and memories of those people that are old-time SSPXers. It's good to hear Archbishop Lefebvre's voice repeated again, leaving out the extra controversial parts, but we're supposed to remember those parts. And we're going to follow St. Pius X, that we restore all things in Christ. That's good. So maybe the Society is going to continue as it was. No, if the Society is going to continue as it was, we're going to call modernism a heresy, the synthesis, grand sewer, collection of all heresies, which is the greatest heresy of all time, leading to the countless damnation of countless souls. And therefore we've got to combat very heavily against it. Non-modernism is a trend. And notice also, again, go back to the... that was the general final chapter, final address, which sounds pretty good. Immediately after it, Bishop Fillet interview. What's a Bishop Fillet interview? We are a disturbing factor in the church. We'll go to the end of the interview. I read this interview in a sermon a few weeks ago. At the end of the interview, do you trust the Holy Father, Pope Francis, personally? Let's just go back towards the end of the interview. What would be a reasonable solution look like? The solution for the SSPX. The answer, Bishop Villet, a personal prelature. If the canonical form has already been found in the discussions in Rome, so it's interesting, I've heard people tell me just in the last few weeks, the same thing we've been saying for the last 6 years, Bishop Villet is not going to make a deal with Rome, there's no personal prelature. This is a June the 30th interview, 2018, that was published in the Society July 20th, 2018. That's a few days ago. It's published along with the general chapter statement final address. So the what do you call it? So if the canonical form has already been found, and the discussions in Rome went well, what explains the failure to make a decisive step? Bishop Flay responds, last year Archbishop Pulso told us the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith agreed to the text we were supposed to sign. With it, we were to agree to a personal prelature. 1.5 months later, Cardinal Mueller decided to revise the text and to demand clearer acceptance of the Council and the legitimacy of the Holy Mass. First, they opened up paths of discussion for us. Then they closed them off. What do they really demand of us? The devil's at work here. It is a spiritual battle. Do you trust the Holy Father, Pope Francis, personally? Bishop Flay, we have a very good relationship. When we let him know that we are in Rome, his door is always open. He constantly helps us on a less important level. For example, he told us, quote, Pope Francis to Bishop Flay, I have problems when I do something good for you. I help the Protestants and the Anglicans. Why can't I help Catholics? Many want to prevent unification. We are a disturbing factor in the Church. The Pope stands in the middle. And then as the interviewer notes from the German press, Bishop Flay smiles and shows a handwritten note from the Holy Father to him, composed in French, that begins the salutation, Cher frère, cher fils, dear brother, dear son. That's the relationship as of July 20th, 2018. Now, the General Chapter comes together. In the General Chapter, we elect a new Superior General, Father Davide Pagliarani. He was the priest. He's the same age as myself. We're a difference in age of a couple of months. I don't know which one of us is older. But we're the same age, Father Pagliarani and myself. And he was ordained 2 years after me, ordained in 1996, and now he's 22 years a priest. And he is the priest who in 2012, in the General Chapter, he stood up against Father De Journay, and he says, you don't speak that way about the Superior General. I will not allow the Superior General to be criticized. And they had a standing ovation at Father Pagliarani defending Bishop Flay, because there was a move at that time to criticize Bishop Flay in the chapter and try to get him to make a profession of faith, which Bishop Tissier had written, and then to make him either accept that profession of faith or he would have a vote of no confidence and be thrown out as superior. Instead of that happening, Father De Journay stood up and made a kind of a criticism about foolish things. Father Pagliarani stood up and said, you don't speak about my superior like that. And then there was a move to cancel all negative statements about Bishop Flay. Pagliarani led the way. He is a superior. He was superior of the seminary there in Argentina, and is going to be, we think, in favor of this modernist deal with Rome. In order to help him be in favor of it, at the very end of the General Chapter, 2 new positions were created that we never had before. General Counselors of the Superior General. That's Bishop Flay and Father Franz Schmidberger. So what that will generally mean is that would indicate that Father Pagliarani is going to be a figurehead and not an actual superior of the society. That the General Counselors of the Superior of the Society, of the Superior General, the Superior General for the last 24 years, and the Superior General 12 years before that, the Superior Generals of the last 36 years of the SSPX will be the advisors and counselor generals of Father Davide Pagliarani. So if he's not a good boy, they'll be able to get together and break him. So the creation of this new position kind of undermines any kind of authority that Father Pagliarani may have. Now, and then, if you look at the ones elected, Father Pagliarani, Superior General, Father Bouchacourt and Father de Galarreta, Bishop de Galarreta as assistants. Father Bouchacourt is the one who smashed the 7 priests who wrote a letter defending marriages of the society last year or 2 years ago. He smashed them. They wrote their letter and published it on Sunday morning at about 10 in the morning all throughout France. He expelled and demoted and removed all 7 of them before 5 p.m. that night. Within 5 hours. So he was a man of action. He immediately removed all 7 of those priests. I met one of them in the Philippines. He was my brother there. And he was punished and sent to the Philippines. He was one of the principal authors of the letter. He was transferred out. And then so that it's clear that the new hierarchy is in favor of the new modernist direction. But what about the teaching of the society? Here's the teaching of the society. We have a Doctrinal Declaration 2012, and it clearly states Vatican II is in line with tradition, and it clearly states the new Mass is valid and legitimately promulgated. Which we can't accept as Catholics. It's not true. We can't accept that. So, and the personal individuals don't like it. That's their own personal problem. Here we are in 2018, and the society is going further and further away from God, further and further on the path to perdition. And it continues to get closer and closer to this so-called deal with Rome. And it's interesting, as new people join the society, remember they speak to Bishop Fillet personally. Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. And then he does an interview the next day, which says the opposite. Such as this interview. This is one of many interviews. I'm not going to read the whole interview. I did it in a sermon a few weeks ago. He speaks about the liberalism. He speaks the exact opposite of the Declaration of 1974. Right. That basically he doesn't speak about the heresy in the council. Just that there's no heresy in the council. We've got to just recognize there's corruption of the church, and we're not the only ones condemning the corruption of the church. Other people are also condemning the corruption of the church. Yeah. So, that the only reason Archbishop consecrated a bishop was because he didn't trust them, and so on and so forth. And that they're just getting away from the fight of the faith. So, it's a very damning, bad interview as regards to the Catholic faith is concerned, and put right after the general final address. So if you look at the final address, you try to interpret it in the light of 74 Declaration. Immediately afterwards, Bishop Fillet's friends of Pope Francis, Purse Repelliture is the solution to our problem. The new Mass has abuses in it, but not intrinsically evil, etc. So we just can't, so the situation is just continuing to be worse. The loss of faith is continuing. And then what's happening? Diminishing. Bishop Williamson interesting report in the Liaison Comments this last week. There were 450 people at ordinations in Icon. I guess. Normally there's 3,000 to 5,000? Normally there's 3,000 people at ordinations in Icon. This year there are 450. Normally in American ordinations we have 3,000. Well, last year they had between 4,000 and 5,000 people attending the ordinations in the United States, in the Society of St. Pius X. This year, it says in the bulletin of the society, several hundred faithful attended. It says several hundred. So we're seeing that, like Mr. Williams even says in Liaison Comments, that people are voting with their feet. They are kind of walking away. There's a diminishing going on in the society, and the reason is because what do they stand for? What do they believe in? What on earth do they believe in? What on earth are they standing for? We'll find ourselves in the exact same position. That they're not standing for the truth, they're not holding that truth, they're not holding the faith. We'll find liberalism being taught in the seminaries. When meeting with the seminarians, they're beginning to use the new terminology as they come out of the seminary now, the new kind of terminology of the modernist priests. They're not using the old terminology. And that they're just simply like bureaucrats running the little parishes, and the idea of spreading the faith and being the only answer to the problems in the world. Remember, a Catholic faith is the only answer to the troubles in the world. It's not an answer, it's the only answer. And whenever we say, as long as I personally can remain a Catholic, I'm not going to worry what they do to the others, that's a sin. Bishop Fillet is fully aware of the fact that Francis the Immaculate has been smashed by Pope Francis. Smashed into oblivion. Meanwhile, he's nice to us, so I'm not going to worry about what he does to Francis the Immaculate. I'm not going to worry about how evilly he treats those people that are up to Catholic tradition. We're trying to be traditional. He's trying to bring us into the snare. In fact, it's already there. Society's already given in on the faith. And what happens? Loss of faith everywhere in the world. And they're seeing this slowly going away from the faith. And those priests and people back in 2012 who said, if we make a deal with Rome, it's a compromise of faith, they're now saying, as long as we don't have to compromise ourselves, it's not a compromise. No longer a compromise of faith, as long as I don't have to accept myself personally. Then they're no longer criticizing in an essential manner the Vatican II errors and heresies. And whenever someone's against it, it's because you personally know a conservative priest in the society who told you personally in the sacristy, when you did the secret handshake, and you did the little sign, and they gave you the sign, I'm against Vatican II. Father told me he's against Vatican II. Trust me. I did a test once. Won't say the names of the priests, because I could say the names of 3 different priests. So the faithful determined to affirm to me they're 100% against Vatican II, 100% against the new Mass, and I know them personally. I also know personally they're against. So I know my own personal knowledge, and the faithful that knew them said they also knew. So I just did a test. I went to people that didn't know them personally, but were members of their parish. What does Father think about the deal with Rome? I don't know. Doesn't say anything. What does Father think about, the evil of Vatican II? Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure he doesn't like it, but he doesn't really talk about it. Sometimes he says there's abuses and so on. And when he does, it's all this secret. It's like an inside joke. They preach a sermon, and if you know the priests, and you know the language, and you know the different community, he just taught against Vatican II. How do you know that? Because I know. You know the secret language, you had a conversation the day before, you know it means that. But what about the other simple people in the pews that don't have that knowledge of the priest personally? 3 different priests, remember doing that check on the people don't know. Furthermore, when you are in the Society of St. Pius X or any other organization, you represent the organization. The organization promotes this bull honky, you promote that bull honky. You stand for what the organization stands for. And guess what happens? People know that, and they believe, and they follow. And what happens to those strong priests that don't believe in the deal of Rome, for instance? Well, they begin to change their minds. My brother, for instance, was 100% against it 6 years ago. My older brother, in the priesthood and in life. And now he says, well, it'll be a good thing we're going with Rome, because if we go in with Rome, there's going to be proof that Rome's converting. The SSPX goes in with Rome, it's proof that they are converting. It's fine. If the lion puts me in his mouth, it's proof that he's not hungry. Well, maybe not, but maybe he's gluttonous. Right?
Just keeping you warm.
Right? That's right. It's completely absurd, right? So, but in any case, efficient there, and then I'll close with that for right now. But the SSPX is going on exactly the same as it has before. We see a greater modernization, a greater liberalization. What happened to the priests? They've been thrown out. The old priests, the conservative priests, the priests that are more traditional, whatever that means, they don't have authority anymore. They're in the missions. They're being thrown out. The fraternity of St. Peter and SSPX, when we walked down the street 20 years ago, if I see a Satanist, I was like, oh, it's Satanist. How's it going, Father? Yeah, fraternity of St. Peter. Right? It's instant death, right? They're our arch enemies. They're the ones that betrayed us. They're the ones that abandoned the fight for tradition. They're the ones that created the Endos. They're the ones that created an organization specifically for the purpose of destroying the Catholic faith. That's why it was created. And it consists of traitors who left us. Hence, in the old days, when we meet the original FSP priests, we're not real happy. These are the ones, the 16 priests that founded the fraternity of St. Peter. They are the traitors who betrayed Catholic tradition, who made a deal with Pope John Paul II, who formed an order for the specific purpose of bringing people away from the SSPX back to the mainstream church. It's 88, it's now 2018. What's happened in 2018 in Post Falls, Idaho? Where is the Carmelite convent? 10 minutes away from ours. There's 20,000 places in one Carmelite convent, but they could only go in Post Falls. Where are you building your new multi-billion-dollar church?
Yeah.
In Post Falls, Idaho. Because Coeur d'Alene is too far. That's an extra 5-minute drive. Remember the price of fuel and everything. So, they're going to build it right there. Nothing's changed, except for the fact that now the Society of St. Pius X is not different than the Fraternity of St. Peter. It's the same. One of the things it says in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, it says, we will let the Goy fight each other. We'll let them fight. Let idiot A and idiot B fight. Is it going to be a Republican president this year, or going to be a Democrat president? Is it going to be a conservative president or a liberal president? And we don't care which one wins because we control the policies of both. We'll let the goy fight. So you can be a fraternity of St. Peter and be a modernist in that church, or you can be a Society of St. Pius X and be a modernist in that church. Maybe you don't like the brand of incense that they use in the one church. You like the other incense better. Maybe you like the priest better in this one, the priest better in that one. Maybe you feel more comfortable in the approved church. Maybe you feel more comfortable in the unapproved church. A lot of us are rebels. We feel more comfortable, more unapproved. Other people feel more comfortable when they're approved. So we've got something for everyone. But is there a difference in their doctrine? Is there a difference in their direction? Is there a difference in what they're doing? No, 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 no. What's the result of their behaviors and activities? Souls turning away from faith and tradition. What are they telling people to do? Just be holy and pious on your own. But the idea that all souls on earth need Christ, everyone on earth needs Christ. Consider our ancestors in the age of persecution in the first 300 years of the church. They were being put to death. What do they do? We've got to convert that magistrate who's trying to kill us. We've got to convert the Roman emperor who wants our faith dead. We've got to convert the evil guy in charge of the prisons who is killing all the Catholics. That's what they did. They saw everyone as marked for conversion. And they saw the necessity of either they're going to convert or they're going to burn in hell. And we must try to save them from hell, so we're going to work on them converting. That was the spirit of our ancestors. What about our spirit? As long as I don't have to dress that way, as long as I don't have to believe that baloney, as long as I don't have to promote it, I don't care what you do. And that's not the Catholic faith or Catholic spirit. It's a death of it. Complete death of it. I think as we close with that, anybody have any questions or whatever, and then take a little break here for a while. Any questions or anything? Okay, we'll say a quick prayer. We'll take a little break here. We'll find some more before we got you say a Saturday first. Father, Holy Ghost, ahead. Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Save us in power. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, victory. Thank you, sorrows. Thank you, Christians. Thank you, nations. Is there that holy ice stuff? We'll have to get another bag of it. Ice.